Religio. Ni koya hose na wenge o Piscataway comigo yakio kana harai. To Wailama o ke lanko moke comigo yakio kana harai. Good morning. My name is Rico Newman. I'm a member of the Choptico band of the historic Piscataway chiefdom. I want to welcome you all here to the homeland of the people today known as the Piscataway. Historically, the Piscataway were comprised of more than 13 different tribes or parts of the nation. Today, we're all known under the singular title of Piscataways. But again, I welcome you to our homeland, and today I want to share with you some of the material culture that is Piscataway. I hope. Okay, what you see in front of you is a lot of different types of material that is used in the Eastern woodland culture. And what you see in front of me is what's called a prayer box. This was made by a vendor that I got this from years ago. Haven't seen him in probably 20 years. I hope he is still walking on this side of the grass. But this contains everything I need, from prayer bundles to shells to the things that I need for smudging and for prayer. I won't go through all of the contents of it with you, but some of the things that you'll find in a prayer box would be a prayer pipe. Now, these are much too long to go in here, but this one is a stylized pipe that would be used with a pipe, and they are not put together. The stem of the pipe is never placed on the pipe until you're ready to pray. It's like for Christians, you don't whip out your Bible unless you're willing to pray, not for photo opportunities, but it's a symbol that you're ready to pray. This one is a Western style. You can tell from the beadwork and the length of it. The next thing you see here is what's called a pay shawl or roach. This particular one was my youngest son when he was doing fancy dance. This would contain 2 eagle feathers that would spin as he danced. Everything that a dancer wears has symbolism. Now, what you see here is a deer antler that is used when I am smudging or when I am smoking tobacco, or kanickanik as they call it, which is a mixture of different grasses. Again, the deer antler is used. You don't use a knife. You don't use any kind of implement that you get from your kitchen drawer to do anything with your pipes. Anything that goes in that pipe, you use a tip of a deer antler. It's just what's done. This particular pipe, which is a smoking pipe, was given to me by a gentleman who came to the museum. Forget which nation, but he was Apache, and we did a ceremony at the circle in the museum, or what's called the Potomac area. And after we finished, he was amazed that Indians are still here in the East. He was doubly amazed that I was able to do the ceremony in my traditional language. And when it was all done, he gifted me this pipe. It has some age on it, it's got chips, etc., but I use it when I'm in prayer. Coming down the line, you'll see different styles of pipe ends. These 2 are made of catlinite. This one is made of a black stone, which name I cannot recall at the moment, but it is a stone that's from the Great Lakes region. These 2 also are from the North Catlinite, which is only found on one place on the earth, and that's up in Minnesota. This one was hand carved. This one had some machine work done to it to get this smooth. And once upon a time, it actually even had a carved bison sitting on this platform. I don't know what happened to that guy. Anyway, what you see next is my feather bag. I have an eagle feather, which I use for smudging. And I have a blue heron feather, which is my prayer feather, which was quilled by a Shawnee woman who lives on the Eastern Shore for me. In exchange, I gave her some dimes. I guess it's Freedom. Had the woman that's used to be on the dime. It was in a squash blossom pattern. So that was a good trade. This feather. And to give you some idea about, okay, eagle feather, we know what that is. Most don't know about the blue heron feather. For our people, the blue heron was a sacred bird. And what it told our people was if the blue heron wasn't fishing in a particular place, you don't fish there either, because they would know whether the fish were good to eat. So moving down the line, what you see next is a complete turkey tail feather, which I obtained from a Shawnee friend up at Fort Frederick, or it might have been in Pennsylvania. And it's complete. It is kept together in a hound with beeswax. And below it, you will see a breast feathered cape, was similar to what Kitamakwa wore when he was the first native baptized into Christianity back in the 1640s. The last one you see here is called a willow one, which basically in our language translates to it covers the head. They have an entirely different name and style for the headdresses up north among the Six Nations. In fact, the feather arrangements at the top of their headdresses denote which one of the Six Nations that they come from. We bead these in 4 quarters to signify the 4 graces that we get: the winds, the sun, the air around us that moves the air and keeps it fresh for us to breathe, and the earth from which all life-giving sustenance comes from. Okay, what is on display now that you will see is an assortment of different types of, most people would say weaponry, but they were things that were used in hunting and be as part of the subsistence practices of native tribes. First thing you notice is this bow and arrow set here. The wood is willow, and the hide on this is from a coyote. The feathers are turkey feathers, and they're dyed because it would be almost a sacrilege to put what would be on here, which would be eagle feathers. And the leather, of course, is dyed, but it is regular commercial tan leather. The spear that you see here has an obsidian point, very sharp, again, very sharp, and used for hunting. This one is a style of basin or lower basin or plains Indian style that was used in hunting bison. This one is a beautiful pelt of red fox, and the leather fringe that's coming off of it is for decorative purposes. The arrows are for real. They have points that would be very injurious. This lance that you see in the back is very large. Again, this is plain style. It was used for bison. And you'll notice a very large obsidian blade. That would bring a bison down. These you see are tomahawks. When Europeans came in, first the French up in the Great Lakes region, they brought in the steel and other metals, and they made these in dual purpose. This is what's called a smoking hawk. You could use it to put tobacco in, and you can draw through it and actually smoke tobacco, or turn it over and use it for business purposes. If people say that Native Americans didn't know about math, somebody's on the wrong boat. Because to do this, you had to know math. You had to be able to divide, and you had to be able to count very good. Otherwise, you would never be able to produce this. These, of course, are different types of arrowheads. People think that these big ones are arrowheads. They are not. They're called knives, or they were used on atlatls. If you put something that heavy on the end of an arrow, you wouldn't get very far unless you had a bow like Ulysses. These stones are too heavy to go on the end of an arrow. Now, these are what people most refer to as war clubs. These is when people would come in conflict with one another. This one I colorized, put a stain on it. I burned in the snake, which of course the snake is for medicine. And if any of you ever been to the Serpent's Mound out near Cahokia, the Serpent's Mound, you'll see that this same design with, it looks like he's going after an egg of some other creature. So I used that design and put the X's and burned that in on both sides of this particular club. What you see at the top here is called a dance stick, as is this one. These are carried in one hand, and maybe a feather or maybe a tomahawk or a club in the other hand when one is dancing. Now, I mentioned these arrowheads earlier. These were found within the what's called Delmarva Peninsula. These are called Piscataway points, not because they were found at Piscataway here, but they were found at Piscataway, which is pretty much in the Jersey area. The last two that I have for you here are tomahawks that we use for throwing. This is where you get your practice. But we always tell people the last thing you want to do if you find yourself engaged in some type of battle, you don't want to throw your tomahawk. Because once you throw it, it's gone. So you better have a backup. And there wasn't any firearms around in that day. You notice this one has no butt on it, strictly for throwing. This hawk has a hammer on the back, where you can actually use it for other purposes rather than just throwing at a target or eliminating an enemy. You could use it to drive some nails into your shed. What I'm showing in front of me is a display of the different regalia that is worn by men and women. The first one I'll show you is one worn by the ladies. They will have what's called leggings, which come from the above the moccasin up to above the knee. They're held in place by garters. These particular garters, as you can see, they're color coordinated, and they're long enough to go around the leg to be tied and to hold the garters up. The belt that you see on the side, a finger woven belt, which is called a chevron design, goes over the shirt and around the waist to hold everything in place. The skirt is tied under the shirt, and this one, as you can see, has been again designed with silk ribbon and beaded for design. Each person usually will put a design in, either a family design or one that they want to exemplify them personally, that's not duplicated by on anyone else. These are the moccasins that go with that, and you'll see that the colors are coordinated. They still have the red and the yellow silk ribbon and the bead work to go around these. The type of moccasin we wear is what's called a pucker toe or center seam. It's simply a piece of leather that's wrapped around the foot, sewn up the center, then turned inside out, folded over. The flaps are then trimmed, and for women's moccasins, you'll notice they are continuous around the heel. There's no split, and you'll see the difference when I get to the male moccasin for Eastern Woodland. So this is a pair that were done, and I might add that this particular regalia that I'm displaying today belonged to my mother, God bless her. She was able to wear this up into her 90s, and this is a shirt, and all of this was sewn by my mother herself. The trade silver was purchased at an event up in Pennsylvania at Fort Frederick. The beading is traditional beading that is worn around the neck. This is a shawl that was made by one of my cousins for my mom that she wore over her arm like most women do. If it gets chilly or if they do a particular dance, they'll put it over their shoulders. These shirts were sewn by my mom. This one was probably the first one she did. I've had this one a long time. I can't remember the type of cloth it's made out of, but it's undyed, I think muslin. It's called a Boltzmann Shirt. The collars and the sleeves are sewn in an old traditional way and gathered at the back of the neck to take up any slack. These materials are traditional. The colors were chosen for a particular reason to match regalia. These are men's shirts, my shirts in particular. And again, you see the color coordinating. These are leggings, again with silk ribbon and a beading design that's continued all the way around the leggings. This is part of what's called a bandolier bag, which a lot of men and women would wear different styles of these. This one's been decorated on the end with rooster feathers that have been dyed red with beads and brass beads and copper cones that originally were cut from tobacco tins. The beading on this was done by me. All the sewing was done by my mother. The edge beading is called zipper edge. And of course, all of the medallions you see here, I've collected over the years from different events that I've gone to and picked them up as a momentum to remind me of some of the places, some of the cultures that I've interacted with across the eastern woodlands from north to south. The designs on the cord that hold the bandolier on, you'll notice there are two different designs. This design would be on the front. When you're greeting a person, you're coming up to them, it has this design. When you're leaving, there's a floral pattern. Reason for that is you want a person, when you're greeting them, they might feel one way, but when you leave, you want them to feel happy. You want them to see these flowers, which is brightening for the spirit.